Hello and welcome to Positively United today, Tuesday the 28th of April 2026. And here are my 5 insights from the game last night where Manchester United beat Brentford 2-1 at Old Trafford to virtually guarantee them qualification for the Champions League next season, but not quite, probably one game to go, but almost there. So, the first insight, Carrick takes control. An awful lot of people, including myself, in all fairness, have been questioning whether Michael Carrick can take control of a game, can influence it whilst it's happening, not just prepare the players well before the game starts, but take real control of the game when it has to be done. And I certainly, for one, have been critical of how long he waits to make substitutions. Far too long, in my opinion, sometimes. And you have to wonder whether Carrick has the ability to see that a game is perhaps going wrong in some way and making appropriate changes, perhaps even quite bold changes, to shift the pattern of the game. Well, we can't have any criticisms after last night's game because he made the changes at half-time. And frankly, really, really bold changes. I was really dubious when he made them because he went back to a back 5 or a back 3, depending on how you look at it. And to be honest with you, about 2 seasons ago, I wouldn't have been worried if the manager had made that change. But in the post-Amorim world, I just felt almost unwell when I saw the team come out and playing 3 centre-backs after half-time yesterday. It just brought back so many bad memories. But I had to think a lot about the game after, about whether that was the right thing to do or not. But it's clearly the right thing to do, because United were getting run through down the channels in the first half. Brentford were allowed to create far too many chances. If they'd have taken those chances, it could have been a very different game last night. And fair play to Carrick, he noticed that. He saw it. And he solved it. He solved it at half-time. Now, whether he solved it in a way that everyone is happy, well, clearly not, and I'll come to that in just a minute. But he solved it. He saw the problem, and he didn't wait until the 60th or the 70th or the 80th minute to make changes. He made changes at half-time. Now, it was a pity for Ahmad because Ahmad looked crestfallen when he was taken off. By the way, I forgot to mention in my player ratings, Ahmad, of course, is the one that made that superb tackle on the edge of his own penalty area that effectively created the second goal for United. The one where Bruno was put into space, ran with the ball, super pass to Šeško. Šeško, cool as you like, slotted it away. It all started with Ahmad. So whilst maybe for Semi had a slightly disappointing game yesterday, and I think I gave him a 6, maybe a 6.5, I can't remember. That was a fantastic contribution. It really was. And it was interesting that when he did get substituted and he did look pretty down, Casemiro came over to him, gave him a big hug. And I think he was trying to make the point, really, that Ahmad had made a contribution. But anyway, I've got a bit off topic. The important thing about last night was that Carrick showed that he can take control of the game. And boy, did he take control of it. And to an extent, we can't have it always. We can't ask him to intervene in a game and make changes and then whinge about the changes. He made the changes. And that was a really positive thing to see from Carrick, because it hasn't been evident until quite recently. In fact, I'd argue it wasn't really evident until last night. So excellent. It's progression. And it definitely changed the course of the game, because Brentford had far fewer chances in the second half. Far fewer. You'll notice that the goal they scored was a screamer from outside the area. So yeah, good to see Carrick taking control. Let's hope that happens a bit more often in the future. But for some, Carrick could still do no right. I've seen some absolutely wild takes today. Obviously, the fact that we've now essentially qualified for Champions League has opened up again the conversation about whether Carrick should be made permanent head coach. And I've always said that for me, there's these three tests: qualify for Europe, play the United way, and keep his coaching team together. Well, when we cross the first of those thresholds, qualify for Europe, I'll start moving down the list into 2 and 3. But some people have already moved down the list. They're already talking about, should Carrick be made permanent head coach or not? And as I said, I've heard some absolutely bizarre takes over the last 24 hours. Of course, for those who don't want Carrick, he can do no right. So they've been criticising him for not making changes in game. He makes changes, still not good enough for them. And I'm afraid we're just going to have to put up with this. There is a sizable community out there who want anybody but Carrick. And it doesn't matter even when Carrick shows progression and shows development. It's not going to change anything. We just have to accept that. But the most bizarre take I heard today was that sort of like, okay, we'll accept Carrick begrudgingly because we can't get anybody else, because all the managers we really want, I'm paraphrasing them, all the other managers we want are all in some way caught up in either their existing club contracts or managing teams in the World Cup. So we'll go with Carrick for a season and then we'll get a, quote, proper manager next summer. You ungrateful bastards. That's all I can say. You absolutely ungrateful bastards. So Michael Carrick gets you into Europe and you basically then say, okay, well, we'll use him for a year and then we'll get the manager we really want. If Carrick gets the job this summer, then Carrick should get the job for a number of seasons. Let him get on with it. It'd be an absolute insult to him to give it to him for just one season, and it wouldn't work anyway. It would be the season from hell. Because all we'd have is the Brent de Cesares of this world constantly banging on about how he's not a real manager and wanting to get rid of him. It's sad it's an insight from yesterday's game, but it's just there. It's hanging over our heads all the time. Carrick makes one step forward. His critics portray it as 2 steps back. It's even more annoying that some of this is being funded by an ex-United legend in Gary Neville. Let's move to something much more positive. Manchester United is a special football club, and Casemiro knows that. The increasing displays of emotion being shown by Casemiro over the last few games, especially games he plays at home, I think are absolutely genuine. I think they're absolutely heartfelt. Honest to God, he looked like he was going to burst, but I think he did burst into tears at the end of last night's game. And I think he's gone on to make some sort of statement about how he recognises that he spent the majority of his career at Real Madrid, but since he's been at United, he's felt something different. What a special club this is. Casemiro has won absolutely everything that a player can win. And yet, Manchester United gets to him. The fans get to him. The legacy of the club gets to him. Old Trafford gets to him. It's amazing what this club can do. And think about, I saw, I'm sure you did, a photo this weekend of Juan Mata, who's playing in Australia now, who's holding up a Man United banner with Bruno Fernandes on it, and with a message to the effect that he's hoping that Fernandes wins Player of the Year. Juan Mata. Number of times we have photographs of Bastian Schweinsteiger cheering United on, sat there in his German home, watching United on satellite TV. It's absolutely incredible the effect that this club has on players who, in some cases, have spent the majority of their career in other clubs, and yet still this club manages to touch their heart. What an incredible club this is. And I sometimes think we forget it. And it's wonderful that somebody like Casemiro can see it. And in his case, is not afraid to show it. Absolutely wonderful scenes last night of his wife in the crowd with his daughter joining in the chants of Casemiro. I'm so glad they're having a special time at the end of Casemiro's time at United. It's wonderful to see. But yeah, it's a special club. It's great not to know who's man of the match. I found it really difficult trying to decide who my man of the match was yesterday. Eventually I went for Lamans because I think he made so many outstanding saves, essentially winning us the game. But I could have chosen, obviously, Casemiro. I could have chosen Mainu. Bruno Fernandes is always there. But it was really nice to have a game where there wasn't a clear-cut winner because so many players put in fantastic performances. Last night, Lamans, Casemiro, Mainu and Bruno put in absolutely magnificent performances. I've been a little bit concerned recently to hear people talking about it's important to hold on to Bruno for next season because we need to build the team around him. I'm really always so nervous about building a team around a single individual player. Why? Well, there's the obvious drawbacks that if that player underperforms or gets injured, you're stuffed. But I remember the 1980s where through no fault of anybody's, and certainly not no fault of Brian Robson's, we tended to build the team around Brian Robson. And Brian got loads of injuries. When Brian Robson wasn't there, our performances dipped. It's so dangerous to build a team around an individual, which is why I never want to do it. If you think about the great Ferguson eras, every single one of his teams didn't have just one player. They had several players who could change a game, who could grab a game by the scruff of the neck, who could change the course of history. And I think we've got a collection of players at the moment who can do that. Now, obviously, we're going to lose Casemiro in the summer. We can't replace him. It's stupid to replace him. What I mean by that is we can't go out there and find a Casemiro because one doesn't exist. Casemiro is in that strata of players. I think there might be at any given time in the world, maybe 10 or 20, who kind of like exist in a role that nobody else can do. They're unique. So trying to replace them is pointless. What we need to do, obviously, is to choose to find, to buy a midfielder who creates their own position, who creates their own legacy in that role. And that's going to be the most important purchase of the summer. But they won't be alone. Kobbie Mainoo is becoming an absolutely sensational player. And it's so good to see. I've more to say about that in just a moment. Bruno Fernandes. We need to create a collection of players who together can be great. I think Aiden Heaven is going to be one of them. His performance last night was absolutely excellent. But yeah, we've, in Lamans, in Kobbie Mainoo, in Bruno, we've got really great players. And I think around them, there are really great players in the making too, like Cunha and Mbeumo. We're not a one-man team by any stretch of imagination. Bruno has performed brilliantly this season. But we had 4 people last night who could have become man of the match, and that's great to see. And that leads me to my final point, which is might strike some people as a bit odd. Thank goodness we no longer have a manager. Because we don't, we have a head coach. And behind that head coach, we have a team of people who decide what players we ought to buy, what players we should keep, what the squad should look like. The manager is no longer the person who has all the say. We have a head coach. The head coach has a say, but not necessarily the ultimate say. I'm pretty certain that Man United would never buy a player that the then head coach didn't want. But this is the rub. I'm also certain that we're no longer in a place where a manager can say, I think that player should go, and we just automatically sell them. Because if that had been the case, we'd be selling Kobbie Mainoo. Because our last head coach didn't rate him. Imagine that. Fabrizio Romano has broken the story today that it would appear that Kobbie Mainoo has agreed all contract terms with Manchester United. United have agreed the contract terms. It's all done and dusted. It's just ready to go. Thank goodness. And what I mean by thank goodness we no longer have a manager was I must admit myself, I was always dead set against the move from a manager to a head coach. But that's because I was emotionally attached to the image of Matt Busby, Tommy Docherty, Alex Ferguson, the all-powerful manager. The manager who decides who's bought, decides who's sold. Because it worked. It doesn't always work though. And I think the days of the all-powerful manager are over anyway. But I think it's good that we now have a collective making these decisions, because it insulates the club from what can be the catastrophes of a single individual deciding upon all the playing staff. We don't have to go back that far to see that going wrong. As I said, Ruben Amorim would have sold Kobbie Mainoo, a generational talent who will be at this club for the next 10 years or more. And then if we go back beyond him, we have Ten Hag, who bought for this club Andre Onana. Compare and contrast Onana with Lamans yesterday. And our previous head coach didn't want Lamans. He wanted Martinez from Aston Villa. Do you want Martinez from Aston Villa now that you've seen Lamans? No, it's working. It's working well. Last summer was an excellent transfer window. A really good transfer window, because it's now a more structured, a more managed, a more collegiate way of buying players. And it's good. It took me a long time to get used to it. It's taken me a long time to realise its strengths, but I'm there now, and I'd never want to go back because it's too much of a risk. The way we do it now is better. And that's good news for this coming summer, because I've got a lot more faith that we'll now make good purchasing decisions like we did last summer than we've made over the last 10 years. Because our record of buying players over the last 10 years has been abysmal. And in all fairness to Ineos, you won't find many channels giving Ineos a pat on the back. But in all fairness to Ineos, they've got that bit sorted out. Even if other things they've done have gone wrong, the bit about buying players and buying the right players and buying them for the right reason and buying them for a system, that's really starting to work. And we saw that yesterday, Lamans. And we have it to thank for the fact that sometime soon, Kobbie Mainoo is going to be signing a new contract. That's really good stuff. Right, those are my 5 insights on the Brentford game. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, please subscribe. If you think there's a United fan out there who would like the approach that I take on this channel, please let them know about it and try and persuade them to subscribe as well. Hit the bell so you know the next time I produce a video and put it up here. Subscribe to my channel on X. It's Positively United. United spelled UTD. I tend to post more frequently on X than I post videos onto this channel, and I react to news stories more often on X than I do on this. When will I see you next? Well, let's definitely be, I suppose, the predicted 11 before the Liverpool game, which I'll probably do on Saturday. Obviously, if anything major turns up between now and then, like, I don't know, Michael Carrick being named as permanent head coach. Obviously, I produce a video at that time, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't want it to happen, really. I think if we beat Liverpool and then we've qualified for Champions League, without a doubt, I think then it might get interesting. Yeah, and we'll just have to, put up with the chorus of execration that will fall on United's head from some quarters when they make that announcement. But I think the majority of us are going to be very, very happy with what happens. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'll produce a predicted 11 sometime on Saturday, and then really looking forward to Sunday. What a game that's going to be against Liverpool. Not easy. Liverpool have got everything to play for, including pipping us to third place. So, yeah, that's going to be a cracker of a match, in my opinion. Looking forward to it. Until then, remain positively United.